Unbroken, the podcast with Madeleine Black. Healing through storytelling.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to Unbroken, the podcast with me, Madeleine Black, where I am speaking to people that have completely turned their life around and are inspiring others with their journey. And today's guest is no exception. Today, I will be interviewing Josh Quigley. He started cycling because he was experiencing depression and was looking for something to turn his life around. In 2015, he found himself in a very dark space after splitting up with his long-term girlfriend, which led to him attempting suicide by intentionally crashing his car at high speed on the motorway near his home. After surviving this attempt, he knew he had to do something differently and turn his life around. He attended a talk in Edinburgh where Sir Chris Hoy was speaking, and his story really inspired him. He made the decision that he would get into cycling and try and cycle around the world. This was how it began. In April 2019, Josh set off from his home in Scotland to cycle around the world, making good time and finding great adventures along the way. Josh was a mere 2,000 miles away from completing his journey when in December he was hit by a truck while cycling along Highway 36 near Temple in Texas, where he sustained life-threatening injuries. However, just 9 months later, he has set a new record for the North Coast 500, riding the 516-mile route in the Scottish Highlands in a little over 31 hours. I think it's 31 hours and 17 minutes to be precise, to beat the record by less than 5 minutes. So Josh, welcome and thanks for joining me today. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so we were just saying before, we've known each other for 5 or 6 years on social media. So I have followed your journey with all the ups and downs, along with many, many people. The first question I would like to ask you is, what does the word unbroken mean to you?
The first thing that I thought of when you said that there was still here and still going. I think somebody who is unbroken has found the courage and found the strength within themselves to be still here and to still be going. I think, lots of us have been through really tough stuff in our lives and, been through certain traumas and events and just a whole load of really difficult things to deal with. But if you're still waking up every day, getting out of bed, facing the world and trying your best, I think that's all we can really do. And so that's probably my definition of that word.
Absolutely. So you have been on this incredible journey in the last 5 years, but can you take us back to where you were at in 2015?
Yeah, so the story for me really begins in 2015. And what was quite interesting about that period in my life was that in 2015, I was running my own business in Edinburgh. We had our own office, we had 2 staff. I'd just been awarded Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2015 by one of the Chambers of Commerce. Had a girlfriend, had a lot of friends, just had this really amazing life. But on the inside, it wasn't all it was made out to be.
It
And,
looked like it was a great life, but it's not what
yeah,
was going on the inside. Yeah.
yeah, on the outside, it looked like I had everything that a young guy could possibly want from life. But just 2 months after receiving that award and becoming Young Entrepreneur of the Year, I drove my car into a wall at 70 miles an hour in a attempted suicide attempt. So that'll tell you a little bit more about how I was actually feeling. And for me, my life changed forever at the end of 2014 when my long-term girlfriend and I broke up. We'd been together for about 7 or 8 years, got together like 14, 15 years old. So, just kind of, you understand how big a part of my life she was. And I think the worst bit about it was I don't tell that bit of the story so people feel sorry for me and think, oh, he had his heart broken. It wasn't like that. It was, it was my fault. I was a really selfish guy, and I probably still am really selfish. But I was just focused on building my business. I was working a lot. Or when I wasn't building my business, I was just going out with my mates and going to the pub. I was just very self-centered, very selfish, and my girlfriend just had enough, and she thought, this is not what I want from life. I want more than that.
But
And
you're
so,
saying that now, looking back, could you see that at the time that you were behaving in this selfish kind of taken her for granted way?
No, not at all. You know, it was such a huge shock to me. Like I never imagined that it would have ever ended like that. And so yeah, it was a massive shock. I never realized how much I'd been neglecting her, but that is essentially what I'd been doing. And so that made it worse because it wasn't just like dealing with a breakup, which was hard enough, having to say goodbye to this person who'd been such a part of my life, but it was also the guilt and the shame of waking up every day and having to look in the mirror at the guy who ruined my life. Like there was nobody else to blame except me. It was my fault.
The
You know,
waking up to your reality of how you're behaving. Yeah.
yeah, that was it. And so, you know, it wasn't just a breakup, it was also all these feelings of guilt and shame, and you realizing that it was me that made the mistakes and having so much regret. So it was just a really, really difficult time for me. And, you know, this went on for about 6 months, just feeling really depressed, you know, feeling really suicidal. I was heavily self medicating with drugs and alcohol. That was making things a million
It's not
times
going
worse.
to help.
No, no,
No.
it doesn't help. And, you know, that was making things a million times worse. But I was in this really negative place of waking up and feeling so bad, needing something to cope, you know, doing the drinking drugs, but that was making it worse. So it was just a really,
They are a depressant, really, aren't they? They're not going to, we think it lifts us, but actually they're a depressant at the end of the day.
yeah, and it was difficult for me as well because, you know, at the start of the year I'd went to the doctors because I didn't want to go to the doctors, but everybody, few people around me said you need to go to the doctors, you need to get help, and so I went and done it anyway. But they didn't really have anything for me. It was the only options was to take the drugs that they wanted to give me, which I personally just didn't want to do, or was to go on a waiting list for therapy and counselling, which was something like 7 months. So I remember leaving the doctor's office that day under the impression that there wasn't any help out there for me, and I was going to have to try and do this on my own. And obviously, I failed miserably because I was just turning to drugs and alcohol.
Which is really hard to hear that you felt not supported. But you then went to hear Sir Chris Hoy do his talk, and that sparked something inside of you. Why did you hear somebody speak and then think, I'm going to cycle around the world?
Well, there's actually, you know, the Chris Hoy moment is one of the most important moments of the story. But there was actually a moment just before that was also probably more important. Round about September of 2015, about 3 or 4 months after I crashed the car and tried to end my life, I was having a conversation with my business mentor, and I says to him, "Do you know what, Alan? If only me and my girlfriend never broke up, I would be happy, and the business would be doing so much better." And he said to me, "What other excuses have you got, Josh?" And I swear to God, that was the moment that my life changed. You know, the failed suicide attempt and being in the hospital, that was a big moment. You know, the Chris Hoy, that was a big moment. But I think that moment with my mentor was really the turning point in my life because something changed within me that day where I realized that, you know, I was being a victim here and I was blaming life. I was blaming the breakup. I was blaming Scotland's drinking culture. I was blaming certain things that happened when I was young in my life. You know, I was blaming all these things, and I realized that,
He
you know
was
what?
very direct with you and asked you a very honest, grounded question, which
Yeah,
maybe other people didn't have the courage to do, to ask you the honest question, like, you're blaming everyone else here.
yeah, and I think that was such an important moment for me because what it forced me to do is, you know, I decided, right, I'm going to take personal responsibility for my life, and what that means is that, you know, it's now up to me to control my life, and you know, I'm going to focus on the things I can control.
Mhm.
Things I can't control, I'm going to respond to them better. And so that was a big turning point for me. And I decided to start doing things differently. I started, you know, changing my choices, my habits, my
Mhm.
environment, my lifestyle. And it was round about that time, just after that, that I went and seen the talk by Sir Chris Hoy. You know,
Mhm.
I was obviously in a period in my life where I was looking for change. I was making all these big changes to my lifestyle. And you know, there was just something about Sir Chris Hoy that day that spoke to me. And I don't know what it was specifically. It wasn't like anything that he said specifically that inspired me. I think it was just there was something within me that was awoken that day. And I think that, you know, given the journey I've been on the last few years now, being a professional athlete and at the level that I'm at, I think I was always meant to go there that day, and that, you know, I was always meant to be who I am now. And just Sir Chris Hoy helped me realize and kind of wake up that part of me that was always there.
But isn't that beautiful, the synchronicity of life, that you could have just not turned up there and you wouldn't have been this athlete that you are now? But I believe you hadn't been cycling for a while when you'd made this decision. It's been a long time since you've been on a bike.
No, so when I seen Sir Chris Hoy, that was 2015. I'd not been on a bike since like primary school, literally, like I was not a cyclist in any way. You know, I'd not been on a bike since I was a wee boy, and to make it even worse, you know, it wasn't even like I was in shape. Like I was really overweight. I was unfit. Didn't exercise. My diet was terrible, and you know, I was going to the pub 4 nights a week. So I was the opposite of an athlete, and I was definitely not in shape. But I think what I realized that at that moment in time in my life was that I need to make some changes here. I need to do something different. And being the sort of guy that was always, you know, very driven, very ambitious, very confident, a lot of self belief, you know, being an entrepreneur, you know, 21 years old, cycling around the world didn't really seem like that big a deal to me because it's just everything that I've ever done in my life. It's always big, it's always ambitious. So, whereas a lot of people might think, right, I'm going to get into cycling and start going out a few cycles in the morning before work or
Yes,
something like that.
you went from 0 to 100, really, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And what I love about your journey is that you've always been so honest on social media, because there were quite a few failed attempts to get around the world, really, weren't there?
Oh yeah, so I set off for my first attempt in the May of 2016, about 6 months after seeing Sir Chris Hoy. And basically, I went away for about 1 year, cycled 10,000 miles, 14 countries, and just the transformation that I underwent in that year was just incredible. You know, as I said, when I started that, I was like depressed, suicidal, overweight, unfit. But just through that process of cycling for a year, not drinking, eating well, meeting so many amazing people, seeing so much of Europe, that just transformed me. I just felt so happy and healthy, fit, confident, and just loving life again. And I thought, you know what? I don't really need to cycle around the world. I've got what I wanted from this, which was just I just wanted to be happy. Really, that was my dream, cycling around the world. I never grew up wanting to cycle around the world. I went through a really difficult thing and wanted to be
But you've
happy.
always been very honest with journeying, when you fell back into difficult spaces. It hasn't always been, I just decided to cycle the world and I've been happy ever since. You do slip back a bit and then you go forward a bit, and then you went back a bit. And sometimes the social media wasn't always so kind to you. People were saying, oh, gonna give up now, Josh. How do you deal with those people? I mean, there is an amazing amount of support, which is lovely to see. But I did read occasionally some people saying, oh, here we've heard it all again. Here he goes again, off on his bike. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it wasn't. You know, it's never easy dealing with trolls. It's never easy dealing with people criticizing you online because you know we're all human. We all want to be loved. We don't want people to be attacking us, especially publicly when everybody can see it. I think as I look back in that period in my life now, I don't really have anything against the people who attacked me or criticized me because I actually think I probably deserved it because I was constantly stopping and starting and stopping and starting, and I was having all these. You know, I had such an amazing opportunity. Like, how many people were working jobs they hated? You know, maybe enjoyed cycling, and they see this guy who's got this opportunity to cycle around the world, but he keeps stopping and starting all the time. I can understand it. So, you know, looking back, I
I
can
don't know
understand.
if you deserved it. I think trolls are keyboard warriors in the privacy of their home, and no photo up. Yeah, they should really go
Yeah.
and do other things. But I think you were honest to show that just because you've recovered from mental health, it's not always forward. You do go backwards a bit, then you go forwards a bit. So I think actually it was great that you journeyed that as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I did share it honestly and authentically at the time because to get to where I'm at now, you know, I never just a few weeks ago went and set a world record and then that was my first thing that I'd done in cycling and I just showed people the nice shiny achievement. I've actually shared it from the bottom up from the last 5 years and most of the things that I've actually tried haven't went to plan. They haven't they
Yes,
have
can you talk about some of the things that set you back on the last journey round? Because something happened in Australia with your passport, didn't it? And that kind of stopped you from heading off. And the bike was nicked as well at one point. And there's a few things that happened along the way.
yeah, so once I came back from that first attempt, you know, I started to struggle again in Scotland. I found it easy to slip back into old habits. And
Mhm.
you know, when I was away, I had these amazing habits. You know, I was cycling, wasn't drinking, all that sort of stuff. When I came home, it was just easy to go back to the pub, and because it was so conditioned into my environment. When I'm here, that's what I do. So I kept getting back in the bike and having more attempts, but something kept stopping me. Something kept bringing me home. And I basically had, about 5 or 6 attempts at cycling around the world before I decided in April 2019, right, this is it, Josh. This is time to just commit to this challenge.
Mhm.
You've tried it now 6 times, and 6 times you've not finished it. There's clearly something within you that wants to do it, or you wouldn't have tried it 6 times. Now we're going to do it, but we're going to commit to cycling around the world, and we're not going to stop until we finish.
You definitely are not a quitter. Nobody can ever say that about you. You're not a quitter. It's amazing. So on the 7th time, you still came across a few things that set you back.
Yeah, so when I set off for that 7th attempt, April the 14th, 2019, I really never looked back. Like, there was just something different about me that time. I had a determination, and I think it was a commitment. Like, I'd never before said I'm going to cycle around the world no matter what. I said I'm going to cycle around the world until something happens and I feel better, I change my mind. But the 7th attempt was different because I said I'm going to do this no matter what. Like, I made a solid commitment to it. And so once I started, there were so many obstacles, so many things went wrong. My bike got stolen in London, but because I was committed to the challenge, I had to find a new bike and keep on
And your
going.
bike was called Braveheart, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Scottish
called
name.
Braveheart. Yeah, it was called Braveheart. That bike unfortunately got stolen in London, but I was committed to the challenge, so I managed to get a new one and kept moving forward. By the time I made it to France and going over the Alps, one of the passes was closed. I had to come all the way back down and go up to do this big, massive detour. But I was committed to the challenge, so I kept moving forward. I got to Azerbaijan, got really sick there, had to have 2 weeks off the bike, but committed, so I had to keep moving forward. Got ill again in China, had to keep moving forward. Got to Australia, passport got damaged, had to come home for a new passport and fly back to Australia. And then we get to America, where I was on the penultimate leg. The only thing between me and finishing the challenge was cycling across America, Los Angeles to New York. And about 1,000 miles into that, I got hit by a car at 70 miles an hour.
And can you tell us about the injuries? Because I've seen the photos. They were horrific. They were life-threatening injuries, really, weren't they? You were flung 50 feet up in the air on your bike.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm alive, to be honest. Like, I really don't. Like, if you think about like a car on the motorway traveling at 70 miles an hour, how fast that is. To think that a car traveling that fast hit me directly from behind,
Yeah.
and I survived like that, I'll never get my head around that. And so that's what happened. I got hit by a car at 70 miles an hour. I flew about 50 feet through the air, hit the ground, really heavy impact, and was then flown to hospital on a helicopter. The injuries that I sustained was a fractured skull, a traumatic brain injury, 7 broken ribs, one of which had went right through my lung, so I also had a hole in my lung. I had multiple fractures on my back, my ankle, my legs, and my heel, and also required 3 major surgeries. So that was, I was alive, but I was pretty messed up.
And what was the prognosis? What did the doctors say to you then when you were in hospital?
About what?
About walking again, about cycling again, or getting back on your bike?
Yeah, that's funny because I can't ever remember a conversation with anyone in the hospital where they said you'll be able to walk again or you'll be able to get back on the bike. I remember when I woke up, I just had an assumption I was going to get back on the bike. It was weird. Like, I can't remember if somebody told me, but as soon as I was conscious in hospital, I was like, when can I get back on the bike? Because as I said, I was committed to cycling around the world. I was determined, and there was nothing going to stop me. So, from the early moments of waking up in hospital through the whole period of rehabilitation, the only thing I was thinking about and the driving force for me was, I'm going to rehabilitate. I'm going to come back stronger than I was before, and I'm going to get back on the bike and finish cycling around the world. So
That was your focus.
yeah, that was it. And that came from 2 places really. First and foremost, I had this commitment to the goal. I needed to finish cycling around the world. But I think what that 7th attempt done for me as well is it really helped me fall in love with the bike in a way that I'd never done before. I think in all those earlier attempts, I never really seen myself as an athlete. I never really seen the challenge as an athletic endeavor.
It's an amazing
Yeah.
achievement. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was almost like I looked at the bike like a vehicle. Like, I was on this inner emotional, spiritual, if you want to call it that, journey. And the bike for me was just a vehicle to help me go on that. But I think on that 7th attempt, I really fell in love with the bike, and I really fell in love with cycling. And I really kind of discovered who I am. You know, I feel like I am a born athlete. This is what I was born to do.
What does cycling do for you? Why cycling? What do you love about it?
It's there's just so many things, so many things I love about it. I think what it comes down to for me, first and foremost, I think it's just purpose. Like cycling is the purpose of my life. It is the number one thing in my life, and everything in my life revolves around cycling. And I don't know what I would do without it. And so, to ask the question why cycling, I don't actually know if I chose cycling. I genuinely feel like it chose me a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of answered the call. Like I think there's certain things that have happened in my life, very spiritual experiences that, you know, there's some things I feel like I didn't ask for this, but
So that sounds like really having good faith or trusting life, or that this is
yeah,
meant to be. This is your purpose now.
yeah, I'm definitely, you know, somebody who lives their life with faith. You know, when I was in the hospital after the suicide attempt in May 2015, you know, when I was released to go home, before I did, I went on to the chapel in the hospital. And, you know, back then I wasn't a guy who was religious or spiritual, not like the complete opposite of that, actually. I was just a guy who was living for the weekend, really, and, you know, trying to be a successful entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
That night, something happened to me that night, and I've never really been the same since that night. I guess, you know, spiritual awakening is probably the best term to describe what happened that night. Like, I really woke up that night. And, you know, that night in the hospital chapel, I wrote a message in the book, which basically thanked the God I didn't believe in and said, you know, I'm going to turn my life around and I'm going to find out why I'm here and why I've been kept alive. Because, you know, I walked away from that crash 70 miles an hour without a scratch. So, you know, that's twice that's happened now. Like,
You're
and
like a cat, huh?
yeah, the second time, obviously, I was pretty injured, but, you know, that's two 70 mile an hour crashes now I've survived. And, you know,
So you
there's,
said it was a God you didn't believe in. Do you now believe in a God?
yeah,
Yeah.
I do now. Yeah, it's not
So it
something.
woke you up to your faith as well.
Yeah, it's not something. I think most people who know me or follow me would be surprised to hear me say that, because I don't really talk about it. It's not something that I walk around preaching to other people, because I understand it's a very
It's a very
personal.
personal thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it is a very personal thing, but it is the number one driving force in my life. Like everything in my life, I'm always thinking about God and faith, and, you know, what's the right path here. And, you know, I think it's just for me, what it does for me, faith, is that it takes away a lot of fear and uncertainty.
Hmm.
Like I genuinely just trust that there's a path for my life and that I'm just living it. And so,
You are definitely on your path, and it's like what we said before. It's about trusting life. This is exactly where you're meant to be, right here in this moment. This is your life. Your world is just opening up exactly how it's meant to be. It's incredible.
yeah, I think that's exactly it. You know, so now when things go wrong in my life or anything goes bad, it's not to say that not to say that it's easy when things go wrong, because it's still painful. But when things go wrong now, I've always got a good sense of, you know, right, this is meant to be happening. This is here for a reason. This is here to teach you something.
Yeah.
And
So
I
it's
think
a lesson now rather than a burden.
yeah, I think it just helps to provide meaning, when meaning for life. You know, when see, if you don't have faith, you know, it's hard to find meaning. You know, it's really hard. I think anyway, because if you're thinking that things are just happening randomly and there's no meaning to anything, when things go wrong, it's hard to deal with that. It's really hard to deal with that, I think.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because I don't like to think that things happen for a reason, but I think I can find purpose out of what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So now you're from that solo guy who started off on his own little challenge. You have a team of people now, so it's a very different kind of outlook. How does it feel to have all this support and this professional team looking after you?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You know, I think I was just a guy who just started cycling on my own, you know, trying to be happy or trying to be healthier, not really sure why I was on a bike. And I'm now, you know, I'm now full time at this, got a good team around me, lots of sponsors. You know, there's a book coming.
Yes, I know. That's
I'm
really, I
doing
can
a
ask about the book.
movie. Yeah, there's all this crazy stuff happening. I think for me, it's just, you know, I feel very lucky. You know, I've got such a good thing going here. I've got a lot of people who support me, a lot of people who believe in me, and, you know, I've got a good thing going. And I think that one of the reasons why I've been able to build this team and build all the support around me is that first and foremost, I've always been very clear on having a vision, telling people what it is I'm trying to achieve, and sometimes even communicating why I was trying to do that. And I think that when you've got a clear vision, you've got a clear goal, and you're able to communicate to people, this is the direction I'm taking my life in, people want to be a part of that. And so
Yeah.
what's interesting about the team is that, I never approached all these people and said, look, I'm building a team. Do you want to be part of it? These people all approached me and said, Josh, I love your vision. I love what you're trying to do. I want to be part of that. And I think that's an incredible lesson for
You're
anybody.
all on the same agenda then, aren't you? You've all got the same
Yeah.
aim, which is to
Yeah.
help you achieve. So why did you choose a North Coast 500? Because I live in Scotland, as you know, not far from you over in Glasgow. That's a hilly route to choose.
Yeah. So after the car crash in America at the end of 2019, going into 2020, my big goal this year was to just first and foremost recover from injuries, get back in the bike, and then go back to America and pick off where I left off and finish cycling around the world. But obviously 2020 had other plans.
Different plans for lots of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
The
2020,
COVID stopped those plans.
2020 happened, and so I've been grounded this year. I've not really been able to go anywhere, and so I'm just trying to make the most of that and trying to do things here in the UK. And so I came up with the idea of trying to set a world record, and we knew there was a record for the North Coast 500 route, and so we decided to just go and have a crack at that.
Yeah, most people do it in their car and they do a bit of wild camping or stay over in a hotel, but you decided to do non-stop. I was telling my daughter, I was interviewing you. I said, you didn't even stop for a pee. How? She said, how did you not need a wee? You didn't stop at all, did you?
Yeah, so the route is 516 miles, and the previous record was at 31 hours and 23 minutes. So our goal was essentially to go faster than that. And so we set off at Inverness Castle at 5 in the morning, and our strategy was just not to stop. We felt that was a way that we could make up a lot of time, because the guy who had the record before and the guy who had the record originally, they had about 2.5 hours of rest time where they'd maybe stop to eat food or to have a rest or to sleep or something like that. But I knew that I had the mental strength to just keep going the whole time. And so that's what we done. We only had 8 minutes of non-moving time.
Wow.
And we managed to do it in 31 hours and 19 minutes. So
Fantastic achievement. It's amazing. It's a world record. Is it waiting to get verified by Guinness, I believe, isn't it?
yeah, it's not going to be a Guinness record.
Okay.
The last two ones weren't Guinness, so it's just going to be approved and verified by the North Coast 500. But yeah, no, we did get it done. And to answer your question, we were I was doing the toilet on the bike. that's how you get that's how you get it done.
That's it. Wow. But it is, I mean, that also shows your grit and your resilience and your determination. Like, if I have to pee myself when I'm cycling, that's what I'm going to have to do to not stop and get the job done. So I know now, obviously after that, your dream now is the journey to yellow. Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, so my big mission is to win the Tour de France.
Yeah.
It's something I'm going to do in 2026. And I'm going to be the first ever Scottish person to do it.
I have a sense that you have an amazing chance of doing this with the grit and determination you've shown so far. But it's a grueling race, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy, and I don't think it's going to happen overnight. And I understand how far away from that I am right now, but that is my vision, that is my goal, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get there, not because I was physically the most talented or most gifted athlete, but because I was the most determined, and there was nobody who believed in themselves more than me. I think that if I've shown anything in the last 5 years, is that I'm just relentless in my pursuit, and I just don't
relentless
stop.
Is the perfect word for you.
Yeah, I don't stop. I don't give up, and I'm absolutely obsessed by that goal, and I'm not going to stop until I ride down.
And if somebody had told Josh from 2015, who just crashed his car on the motorway, that one day you would be going for the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, what would you have said?
Mental. Absolutely mental.
It's such a contrast, isn't it, from where you were at to where you are now? It's amazing how you've turned it all around.
Yeah, I'm surprised and I'm not surprised. Like, I was a 10-year-old wee boy who read Richard Branson's autobiography and said, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm going to be a famous, successful entrepreneur. That was always my dream for life. And I've always been really ambitious, really driven, really confident. So I always knew I was going to be honest, I always knew I was going to make it in life at something. So I'm not surprised by what I've achieved and what I'm going to achieve, but I'm surprised by what it was. Like I could never in a million years would have imagined that it would have been cycling or that I would have been being an athlete, because I was never like that growing up. So that surprises me still to this day. But I always knew I had something about me that was special and different, and like I certainly had a drive and an ambition that I knew I was going to. I knew if I finally put myself energy towards one thing, I could have a lot of success. But I never thought it would be cycling.
But even just to hear you say the word athlete, you just own that word so well. You know, even a few years ago, I don't know if you would have called yourself an athlete, but now to hear that you say that is great. You really, yeah, it really is you. You are an athlete.
Yeah.
So we know now that you have a ghostwriter involved, haven't you? And your book, your story is being written.
Yeah, so just about to sign a deal with a publisher, but
Brilliant.
the book's definitely coming. I've got an agreement with a ghostwriter down in London who's going to be writing the book for me and telling the story, and I'm so happy about that, because I've been wanting to write a book for a long time, but I just never felt the time was right.
Mm-hmm.
But this feels like the right time now, because it just, the story kept changing all the time, and I was never sure what the final chapter was. But after the North Coast 500 record, that's definitely the final chapter for this part of my life.
I was going to say, I think there'll need to be a book too.
Yeah, there's the next book's probably going to be the better book, but yeah, the story's ready now. I'm ready to tell that story, and I've now got somebody who's got a lot of experience of being a journalist.
He's written some other people's books that are pretty famous as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you'll know these guys, but his last two autobiographies were with David Beckham and Andy Murray.
I think I've heard of them actually. Yeah, I think I have.
So that's a cool club for me to be in. Joining that club with those two guys. But yeah, it's special. I think this is a story that the world needs to hear.
Absolutely.
I think it's a story that people could learn a lot from. And I think if I can teach anything, I think it's that, with the right mindset and the right attitude, I think, most people will be surprised what they can actually achieve in life. And I think that's what I'm trying to do.
Is one of my beliefs as well, that actually we're all so much stronger than we really think we are. And actually, our mind isn't set. We can grow our mind. We can, we can change our outlook, and you've certainly shown that. I'm hoping that your book will be sold on as a film as well. I think it would make the most amazing film to watch.
Yeah, well, that's happening as well at the moment.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize that. So would you be playing yourself?
Everybody's asking me that recently, and I've been joking saying yes, but I'd obviously they'll probably pick somebody else to do it.
Who would you like to play you if you could pick?
I don't know. It's a hard one. Honestly, I don't know. There's nobody that comes to mind straight away. But yeah, it'll be weird to see somebody. I think this is such a weird thing to think about. Like the thought of at some point in the next couple of years, I'm going to be going down to like London or somewhere fancy to watch a movie premiere, but it's a movie about my life. It's like not many people ever get to experience something like that. It's such a weird.
It's very surreal, huh?
Yeah, it's very surreal, but yeah, it's quite exciting as well. I could never have imagined my life turning out like this 5 years ago, but I'm so happy that it did. And looking back and all that stuff that happened 5 years ago, now I'm in a place where I can see that, it was meant to happen. I'm happy a lot of that stuff happened, and I still have regrets over things that I'd done and people who were hurt and stuff like that. But ultimately, it was what it was, and I'm,
It's about being a bit kind to yourself, though, wasn't it? It's just where you were at that time, and now you've woken up to those behaviours, and you've made changes. So it's all about being a bit kinder to ourselves, because it was part of your journey. But you really are an inspiration, just for mental health, for turning your life around, for growing your mindset, all of that. You really shine out for other people. So before we end up here, Josh, I'd just like to ask you, do you have any tips that you would give to anyone, things that have really helped you along your journey?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, personal responsibility is the most important thing. That's the place to start. So what personal responsibility means is you say, I'm 100% in control of my life. Everything within my control, my choices, my behavior, my attitude, I'm going to control that and make better choices. And everything out with my control, I'm going to respond to those things better. That's the number one thing. Number two, something that's really helped me is, having a purpose, a goal, a mission, something to work towards, something to aim for, something in the future that you're trying to get to. Not because you think that when you get there, it's going to make you happy, but just through the process of trying to get there, it gives you something to wake up and work towards. I think that's really been special for me. One of the quotes that I live my life by is, set a goal so big that in the process of achieving it, you become someone worth becoming. And that's what it is for me.
Certainly done that.
It's not about, because I think when I win the Tour de France, that's going to make me happy. Like, I'm happy now, but I think who do I need to become to achieve that goal, and who am I going to become when I achieve that goal? And so that's what it's about for me. It's about who I become in the process.
It reminds me of the quote, it's not really about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah. And then number 3, habits. Your daily habits are going to ultimately determine your life. I'm just so big on habits and choices. And so for me, the big ones for me are, what do I eat and drink on a day-to-day basis, and how do I look after my body? Nutrition and physical activity, exercise. That's it's just so important. It's my absolute foundation in life. I can usually very accurately predict how I'm going to feel based on how my nutrition is and how my training is on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
If I train and exercise and I eat well and I don't drink, 90% of the time I'm really happy and healthy. The times when I don't feel good is when, I've in the past where I've started drinking again. It's when my diet's terrible. It's when I'm not training. It's just so important. And so, those are the big ones for me. But, there's other ones in there as well. I think, how we spend our time, what sort of information we consume. Like, do you read books? Do you try and educate yourself? I just think there's so many things that we can do on a day-to-day basis, little choices, little habits that are really going to make a difference to your life.
That's about being really mindful, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on to Unbroken, the podcast. You clearly are unbroken. You were never broken to start with. And it's just been an absolute delight to finally catch up with you and speak to you. So many thanks, Josh.
Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeleine Black, playing now on all the main platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher for Android, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and here. Play Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeleine Black.